What was I doing?
Oh, you're on.
Oh,
It's
Okay.
been recording.
Welcome to Cars and Kicks. As usual, I have an intro for you guys. So check this out. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. We got your cars and your kicks. I said we've got your cars and your kicks. So if you want cars and you want kicks, all you have to do is listen to Jacques, Erik, and Nick. So this your cars.
All right.
And your kicks. Thank you.
That was pretty good. I did not see Crooner coming today.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Appreciate you all for coming out tonight. Thank you.
That is.
I've had this cigar on this desk for probably 3 months, and that was the perfect timing for it.
Amazing. You know,
Awesome.
it's the week after Car Week, which is what we're going to be talking about. And now Jacques is all fancy and into like jazz.
Right?
All of a sudden, it's amazing. It's just that you keep getting even more cultured every single week, and I'm very proud to be a part of this.
I love it. It's so fun. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Jacques Slade. I am the guy that's only on this podcast because I have a fancy camera, so that's why they let me stay. Really, Nick and Erik, they put this all together, and they're the ones that are going to give you all the magic today. I'm the color commentator, honestly, for this show. So I'll let them introduce themselves and get this episode started.
Yeah. Sorry, my wife just texted me as we're doing this. The baseball practice was canceled, so I got completely distracted. But that's what you do when you're a dad. Hi, I'm Erik Valdez. I'm a dad. I'm also the resident car guy here. Some of y'all have been listening. Maybe 3 or 4 people have been listening to the first 6 episodes, but it looks like we're getting, a little bit more, maybe a half listener every other episode or something.
Yeah.
So, just reintroducing myself. Definitely massive car guy, into sneakers, but not quite as massively into sneakers as Jacques and Nick. Nick is the glue here, and Nick, tell us why you are in the middle perfectly in this setup here, and how you keep Jacques and I, the two people that just go off on tangents and talk way too much, in check.
I mean, this will be the first time that anybody's ever said that I am not the one talking too much, so I appreciate that. But my name is Nick Engvall. If you know me from sneakers, I've done that for quite a while, but I'm also a huge car nerd. Kind of just like this obsessive compulsive disorder that comes with being a collector, a fan, passionate fan of anything, really. So I kind of just hold both of these guys in here and make sure that we talk about certain subjects. And I'm just going to jump right into a subject that I figured that I'd throw out here, because we are going to talk about Monterey Car Week. It's a big deal in the car space.
It is.
I just saw on Complex that the Tiffany Dunks released 19 years ago today. So if you're if you're a sneaker person, you know this shoe. My pair's a little bit beat up. I have a nicer pair still in storage. This is absolutely my favorite Dunk of all time.
You're a sneakerhead when you have multiple pairs of one sneaker, one that you wear, one that you don't, one that you may pass down to a kid someday. Who knows? So
Exactly. Also, I will say that is not something to be proud of. I'm not bragging about that. If anything, hoarding shoes is the most problematic thing I've chosen to do in my life, but good luck with you if you choose to follow that path.
I think hoarding is a very troubling word to use.
Harsh word.
Yeah, it's very harsh, very negative. I like collecting. I like collecting because that makes me feel better about the mess that I have going on.
This is why we're friends,
here.
I appreciate that we can support each other in our
endeavors.
Yeah. Not like, the two guys on the two sneaker guys, they're hoarders. Absolutely. Yeah.
I do want to say, for 19 years old, those sneakers do look pretty fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, they look in great condition.
Yeah.
They're not too bad. I
look
can't
how
complain.
proud he is of them. For those of y'all that aren't watching this, you're just listening, Nick is he's smiling like he's a proud papa.
Yeah.
I mean, the Tiffany Dunk is super important to me because I used to go to Huff and stand in line in San Francisco. Diamond and Huff are family, way back in the day, had friends that were friends and friends. We were just all kind of a part of this. Like, I never could really skateboard, but I would always go to San Francisco to like try to take pictures of skateboarders. And, so that shoe was just a super important one, I think, for anybody that was really into sneakers and, from the Bay Area. And obviously it became much bigger than the Bay Area, and it became a kind of global talking point for a lot of people, but really important shoe for a lot of people around here.
That's awesome.
That makes sense. Oh,
happy
awesome.
19th.
Yeah, happy 19th to the Diamonds.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, Nick kind of touched on it. Monterey Car Week just happened recently, and that's a massive deal for those of you guys listening that are big car people. You've heard of it, maybe you've been to it, etc. If you're not, if you're coming over from the sneaker world and the car space is new to you, what would we equate this to? Monterey Car Week. How can we let the sneakerheads know kind of what level of car event this is?
I've been thinking about this when we said we're going to talk about this, and I'm not sure there's an equivalent in the sneaker world, because you try to think, I think maybe it's like Sneaker Con or something like that, where there's just a lot of people that come to bring sneakers, but that's more of like a flea market sneaker world, where it's like they're buying and selling stuff. I don't know if there's
this has a flea market element to it. People are just spending $7 million on cars. There is an auction
different
and
kind
a sell
of flea market.
type, it's a little bit higher level flea market aspect, but it does relate.
So there is some of that happens with Car Week. There's a lot of depth to it, and I think that's where it's hard to relate it to sneakers. So there is an event, Sneaker Week in Portland, Sneaker Week PDX or something like that.
Yes,
not quite as big, but they're really like kind of moving towards that, where they're trying to bring a bunch of different people in, the storytellers, the creatives behind the brands and stuff. But I think, the first thing that comes to mind when I think about that is like the way that All-Star Weekend used to be the time for anybody to show up to an event around sneakers, right? If you were into sneakers, pre 2015, I would say. Yeah. And it's going to be different for everybody, depending on the year that they kind of look back at fondly. But before 2015, like thinking of like the Galaxy Foamposites, 2012 or whatever that was was like kind of the pinnacle of major releases everywhere, House of Hoops at every, I was living in LA at that time, and I was at Fox Hills Mall, got my Nike Flight Ones at Fox Hills Mall, because I didn't want the foams. I wanted the Flight Ones, and Foot Action was the only place that was selling them at that time. But it really is so much bigger than that. Car Week is like, it's like an every person's experience now. It's gone from, it started kind of with Pebble Beach. It actually started with like an actual race back in like I think we're at 70 plus years now. So like there was actual
74th year, I think, this year. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. But it's evolved into meetups and there are the flea market is not the right word, but it's kind of like the used. People will bring parts, if you want to go to it's not the fairgrounds, but there's a couple of places in town here that where people will meet up, and all of a sudden you've got people laying out collectible parts, and it's everything surrounding it. It's the collectibles, it's the posters, it's the ephemera, like all the stuff that goes with cars, the
historics, the racing event at Laguna Seca, and then it's evolved as everything does, that's been around this long. I had a buddy of mine who had a film premiere at this Monterey Car Week, JF Musial with Tangent Vector. He had a film called Edith, Volcano Ascent, and it was a collaboration with Porsche, and it's dope. It's literally, first of all, he's a hell of a storyteller, really great filmmaker, big car guy, obviously. And he did this story on, I think it was Romain Dumas, factory Porsche driver that drove heavily modified, but very cool Porsche 911 up the side of the tallest volcano in the world. And they made a documentary about it. And so it's really cool to see stuff like that come from what used to just be a bunch of car dudes getting around, a bunch of wealthy car dudes getting around and showing off their cars, and then it evolved to buying cars and winning awards and stuff. And now it's like this whole lifestyle event where you've got a little bit of everything going on. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's every time I hear about it, it seems like it's like this amazing event, and I've wanted to go, but I just never had I guess, the context to go, and like I don't have like a super cool car to take, like to bring, like that kind of thing, and so there was always, from my perspective, a little bit of like, that's probably not the place for me because I don't have like the cool car to show off, and what am I going to do? Just look at cars? Do people just go to look at cars? I bet people are just like, there's this conversation going on. So, but it seems like that's changing, which seems like it's really cool though.
Yeah, it has evolved. You still have your pockets of different things. I mean, like the Concours d'Elegance is always going to be this really highbrow event where everybody gets dressed up in like, suits and ties and these fancy hats, and they celebrate these beautiful historic cars on a golf course, out at Pebble Beach, and they park them on the lawn and drive across. It's great, but you've also got kind of just these events that are unofficial. Nick and I were talking off air about some of the stuff that happens. He lives in Monterey, so he's surrounded by this, and you just go down in the town there on Cannery Row, and I mean you'll see $20 million worth of cars parked outside of Starbucks. It's nuts. Yeah. And anybody can just go to those and have a conversation, and it's kind of like with sneakers. If you've got somebody who isn't necessarily a big sneakerhead but loves the colorway of whatever you got on your feet and says, "Hey man, I like your kicks. Thanks." There's a story behind it, and it sparks a conversation, and suddenly you've got somebody who knew nothing about the sneaker world invested in that because of what this conversation, or because of the conversation that just took place. So it's a lot like that. I mean, trust me, it's if you want to feel very poor, go to Monterey Car Week and have conversations with guys that are literally driving their $20-30 million McLaren F1s down the streets there. But the cool part of it is it's kind of like a nice equal playing field in the sense of it's a passion for these guys, and they love having conversations about that stuff. They don't care if you show up in an 89 Corolla. If you're invested in what they're driving and want to hear the story about how they got it and everything, and that's what it's all about. It's the camaraderie that evolves from cars,
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So what are some of let's do this in two ways. Let's do like the normal person like me. What are some of the things when I go to Monterey Car Week that I'll be like, oh, that's cool. But then let's dive deeper to like the car enthusiast that has never been, like, what are they going to see?
Nick, I think you've been to more of these than I have, and you live up there, so this is probably more. You can speak to a lot of this, I think.
So, I mean, it really is kind of welcome to everybody. Like Erik said, I think that the thing that I dislike about sneakers is there's a lot of kind of gatekeeping mentality towards it, right? Oh, you don't have this many pair, you don't have this type of pair or whatever. And really, like, to me, Car Week is what it is like kind of the epitome of what it should be in the sneaker world. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter what you own. It's like, if you're talking about it and you're passionate enough to have a conversation about it, then you're in, right? The cool club is like, hey, chop it up with us and you're in. And I think that's how Car Week works. And it's so diverse. There's a show down the street from me in Pacific Grove called the Little Car Show. And essentially it's a show where if the car is 2 liters or under, which is, anything from vintage everything to, kind of the 80s, 90s Toyotas and Hondas and those types of things can go into this show. But like that also includes, stuff like some random Volkswagens, and like it's really, really a diverse show. Doesn't cost anything to go. There's probably 200-300 cars on the street, for 5 or 6 hours, so you can go and hang out and learn about, like there's just a lot of interesting stuff that shows up at these types of things, and you kind of, like Erik said, you get to really understand the nerdiness of it all, which is what I love about both of these things, right? Like once you have committed to be passionate about something and you can't get away from that passion in some cases, like that's where you go with it. And so there's a car that lives here in Monterey. I forget the gentleman's name, and I'll kick myself for this, but it's basically it's a Miata that's been converted into this kind of like Italian sports car looking car. And and he, you know, I see it around town all the time. He obviously lives here. He probably, you know, his business is here or jobs here or whatever. But that car at a show like that, it gets a ton of attention because it's so unique, you know, and it's not for everybody, you know, like most people are not going to go convert a Miata into, you know, some other car. And or not going to pay somebody who's done it for that, right? Because it's going to be a lot of labor. And I think that's kind of like the starting point of what Car Week is, you know, very like, hey, I've had this Fiat in the garage for 40 years and I finally brought it out and I parked it on the street, and lo and behold, somebody had questions about it, and I got to share my, you know, love for this car with those people. And then the other aspects of that just kind of dive deeper into different areas. You know, there's an event called Renworks, which is like Porsches only. You know, it's 400 or 500 Porsches over on the golf course. Same thing with Ferrari. I went to a smaller Ferrari meetup this year that's out by the Barnyard in Carmel, which is just like it's just like a local spot that's got a lot of great food. And we went over there kind of not really thinking that there was anything going on, just to see what was there. And there's probably 30 or 40 Ferraris sitting outside of, you know, these restaurants. And it's just cool to see. And it's everything from, you know, vintage stuff all the way up to brand new stuff. You know, there's a couple of Ferraris there with, you know, the temp plates on them straight from the dealership, you know, in California, those like paper plate type things. And I think that's like the cool factor of what it is outside of the, you know, concourse is amazing. It's a beautiful event, and it's super luxurious, elaborate, you know, over the top, everything to Eric's point. I've also been to concourse, you know, and wore sneakers, you know, like I was like, oh, perfect. I'm not going without sneakers, you know, but, and then there's all these other kind of really nuanced things. So a few years back, my brother was still in design school. I guess it's been 5 or 6 years now, maybe even more, and was a part of a design contest. So they do this sketch. It's a I think it's called Middle Scott Design Contest. I might have to look that up, but essentially, like, it's a contest for kids that are in, or students that are in design school, and they do the contest right there live. So there's, you know, 10 or 15 kids in this giant room out on the golf course at Pebble Beach, and you can walk around and watch these kids. You know, like my brother just threw on his headphones, got to work. He ended up winning the design contest.
Wow.
You know? So
like
those types of things happen too. So like, you know, the layers to it, it's become such a crazy, like, eclectic event all across the county that you can kind of find whatever you want. And like, if you're a Hot Wheels person or a model car builder, like there's events for that stuff. There's, you know, there's people that there's a whole little thing that happens at Embassy Suites that's more like, I don't want to say it's like a garage thing, but it's more like artsy and like collectible driven. Yeah. So it's like, you'll go there and you'll see like people that make, you know, they make 4-foot like paintings for garages or something of your favorite car and all that. So like, it's just really kind of all over the place.
And it's cool. It's kind of like Etsy come to life. It's like a high-end swap meet meets Etsy thing where people just create these cool, they're fans of whatever brand or mark or whatever. And yeah, like it's kind of a cool little unique niche thing that gets a lot of eyeballs on it because again, everybody's there to just kind of enjoy the spirit of the automobile. You know, Nick was talking a bit about some of the different events and the niche events and everything like that. And I think one of the things that's been really cool too over the last few years, and we've talked a bit about this on the show thus far, is the JDM world finally getting appreciation. You know, it wasn't too long ago when we were growing up, JDM cars were, you know, you're talking the Hondas, the Toyotas, the Nissans, all those other things were kind of like the older crowd really looked down upon them. We were just a bunch of punk kids that couldn't afford muscle cars or high-end cars, so we just threw a bunch of money into a Honda Civic. That was how things were kind of looked at, not even 20 years ago. Slowly, it's kind of evolved, and now, you know, Motor Trend, I think, started this Japanese Automotive Invitational. I think this is their 5th year doing it there, where it highlights Japanese, you know, domestic market cars, and you'll have anything from, you know, like old Datsun Fairladies and Cosmos and stuff to like modern GTRs. My buddy Rich, who I used to do the Throttle Dogs podcast with, He has an NSXR, one of only a handful in the country, and it was there on display. Really cool guy, Nick. You got to meet him at some point. He'll probably come on the show here, but he's one of those that, like, he's also got a McLaren 675 LT, but he has an S2000 and an NSXR, and he's constantly sending me text with like CRXs going for sale on Bring a Trailer, because that's what he grew up with too. He's just been one of the most successful heart surgeons in the country. Very talented guy. So now he can afford things beyond the Honda world, but he still goes back to his roots. And I think that's what's cool about having events like this, is they've now gone from just being highbrow events to really having something for everybody, which is super cool.
Okay, two things. One, for those that are listening that don't know, JDM is Japanese domestic market. It's for cars that are native to Japan. I know a lot of people that listen that may not necessarily know.
Jacques knew that, though.
I knew that. I knew that, but I just wanted to make sure our listeners that they knew what JDM was. Second, this is just an observation of like watching you and Nick talk about cars. And I was thinking about, like, we don't talk about sneakers in that way, in the way that you guys talk about cars. Like when I talk about Nick, I don't like, oh, Nick has a pair of Tiffany Dunks and he has a pair in storage. Like I don't like reference that. Like I'll just say like he's a sneakerhead, but I don't like reference those kind of things. But I do hear that more like in golf and like the nerdy golf circles. Yeah. Like guys will be like, oh yeah, I have this persimmon from 1939 that was used by Jack Nicklaus when he won certain tournament or whatever it is. Like they have those sort of reference points, and it's interesting to see just that dynamic of like car guys and golf guys having that sort of similarity. But the sneaker guys, which I thought was more like the car guys, they don't reference each other. No one's like, oh yeah, no, Jacques, the guy he has the black Seaman 3s from 2011. like no one says that kind of thing.
That's a very interesting and valid point that I'd never really thought about. But I can tell you, if I go back to like my high school years and stuff, I probably don't remember 30-40% of the names of people that I went to school with, but I can tell you what car they drove. And that's always been the way that we kind of car guys kind of refer. It'd be like, hey, Jacques was over here the other. Who's Jacques? Oh, Jacques with a Tesla. Oh yeah, that's Jacques. Or whatever it is. And it's like, I don't know why that is, but it's just something that we associate, and it's not in a braggadocious way by any means.
No, not at all.
I don't know. It's just like it's the nerdy thing. That's the nerdy car thing.
Yeah,
it's like, we have this commonality, and I can, I know you because of this and all that other stuff. And
like it's a very unique identifier.
It is. Yeah. It is. I see that, on a smaller level with sneakers every now and then. Like I'll see somebody on the street, and I'll see what they're wearing and compliment them on that. They'll see what I'm wearing. We'll have a little exchange. I was wearing my lottery Dunks the other day, and they've started. I didn't scratch them off. They've just slowly started to scratch themselves off, which is cool. It's got like a patina to it. But I had a guy stop me and compliment me on those, and he was wearing like a pair of Michigan Dunks or something, and I think the green whites. Those were the Michigan State. Again, I'm a little off. I'm not the expert here. That's where Jacques comes in. But the exchange that we had was really cool, because we were just two guys on the street that didn't know each other. And now I'll remember this guy. I don't remember his name, but if I see him out in public, I'm going to remember, oh, he was the dude with the Michigan State Dunks. So it happens on a smaller level. But not, I guess car guys are bigger nerds or something.
No, I think it's cool, because like it gives you a reference point, and it helps. It almost like it gives the people listening a reference point of how big of a car guy this guy is, or where
there's a barometer for
there's
sure.
a barometer, because I could be like, oh yeah, my man Nick, and talk to another car guy and be like, yeah, he has like seven Hondas in his garage that he's still working on, and that guy automatically be like, okay, I know Nick, like I know who Nick is, Nick is. But I couldn't be like, oh yeah, he has like 7 pair of Jordan 11s. You're still gonna be like, all right, like that's cool, but and like
well, so I think that's kind of an interesting observation, but I think that it's because like you don't have the depth with sneakers, right? Like sneakers really, we've talked about this, but like if you're being generous, sneakers maybe go back to the 80s where people really cared about them on a level that people can care about cars. Cars have been talked about and passed on. That passion is shared generationally.
Yep.
Right. So the other thing with sneakers is you honestly, like you are kind of solving that with your closet tours, with your tours, right? Your tour videos help people understand because, there's a small population of people that are into sneakers here in Monterey. Like the wall of sneakers that I stare at every time we record, Jacques came and saw the stuff and was like, oh, you've got shoes from, racing. You've got shoes that your name is on. You've got your baby shoes. Like I have all these things, but I don't have them out there. Like you might see me in a pair of black cement 3s pretty regularly, but that is more common now because they've been retroed so many times. So you don't have that kind of, oh, that person had to pay attention for X amount of years. So I'm going to talk to them and like engage and have conversation with them. Where cars, especially with events like Car Week, I think the connecting point is more like a funnel that opens up into a lot more conversation where with sneakers, you don't, like a lot of people will have a pair of nice shoes on, but they might not want to like talk about the other shoes they've had or collected or whatever. Where
a car
I think
guy.
The other thing that like, yeah, exactly. And the other thing about Car Week that's really interesting is like the Monterey Historics happen at Laguna Seca. So you can go up to the track pre event starts, like basically it's 10 days worth of cars around here. Yeah. And people show up early. So there's cars around. Even if you came 2 days before Car Week officially started, you're going to see a bunch of crazy stuff on the street. But when you think about like Monterey Historics, those cars have to be driven. Like they're driven on the racetrack. They're bringing out old race cars to kind of continue to celebrate that. Even concours, the cars have to be driven in order to win like the biggest of the awards. And I think that's part of why sneakers like doesn't quite have that yet. It's like there's definitely people, we know, I mean, you and I know plenty of people that are that level of nerd with sneakers where it's like, oh, did you know that, I mean, I do it sometimes. It's like, did you know that Reebok question up there was worn by, so-and-so. And like, did you know that it came with a different logo on that side if you got it from this place versus this place? And those types of things happen, but it's just that it's not out there for everybody to see. You've really got to kind of dig in to find those stories outside of the internet and find the people behind them, I think.
And I guess sneakers are a lot more accessible than cars are in that regard, because I would love to be like, yo, you guys, so I just did a sneaker tour with Jordan and like, oh yeah, and Jordan has like the powder blue mellow 1.5s. And people would be like, oh, like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Whereas I feel like if I was talking to you guys and I was like, yeah, he has a BMW 523i or something like that, you guys would be like, oh, you know what I mean?
Yep. It is. I see it in my son already. Like it's one of these things. Like he's gonna inherently like cars growing up around me anyway. We figured that, and my wife's family is a car family as well. But he's got whatever that intangible thing is in him, just like me. That he was. We were at baseball practice the other day, and he's out. I'm watching him. He's out playing outfield or something like that. And some dude rips by in like a Honda Civic with a extremely loud exhaust going 30 miles an hour. It was not the best modified Civic, but it made a really cool sound. And he just looks at me from the outfield and his jaw just goes, oh. His 6-year-old mind was blown because this loud car drove by. So he's just got that little thing in him already. And I kid you not, like it just happens. Like he'll call out cars by their headlights or taillights when we're driving around at night. He knows different sounds now. He can tell you whether it's a flat six, a V8, a V10, a V12. Sometimes he can even tell you whether it's a Mustang or a Challenger, just from different exhaust notes and stuff. And I think those little things are what allow people to latch onto cars in such a deep level versus sneakers. Like you're not gonna walk down the mall and have somebody like change directions and squeak and be like, oh, that is a first edition, 85 Jordan 1 because they use this kind of rubber back then, and it's different. It doesn't have the same silica content as it does now. You know what I mean? Like there's probably somebody out there that can do that.
Oh
but
my God.
It's a little different, you know?
That would be amazing. I would love that. That's like a crime drama show where they hire a guy, they hire this nerdy guy, and then he listens to the squeak on the tape. That's amazing. Oh,
yeah.
Do you guys remember there was a commercial it's probably late 90s. I'll throw it in the video here, but like it's basically like a Camaro commercial.
I knew exactly where you're going with this.
In a bedroom, and the kid is like naming cars based on the exhaust that they hear with the window open.
Oh, I think I remember that commercial.
And then it's like such and such, and then it's like Camaro Z28. Yeah, but what color?
Yeah.
Red. Like that's really what, like, I feel like so many people can relate to that experience of like just listening to cars. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe Sneaker Squeaks is a thing. Maybe we need to get that domain name.
Get that domain name, Sneaker Squeaks. And I didn't mean to take us off track of Monterey Car Week. So let's get back to that and telling people more about what's happening there.
I love these tangents. That this is the whole point of all of this is just where these stories go because of the passions and everything. But no, there was a lot of highlights this year in Monterey Car Week. We touched on, my buddy's film being premiered, which was awesome. But the car reveals were, I mean, it's almost like they continue to up the ante every single year in some way, shape, or form. From the manufacturer standpoint to these, we've talked a lot about like Singer Porsche, Tuthill. We just had a conversation about, the Tuthill 911K a couple of episodes ago. Did you see what they brought to Monterey? Oh my gosh. Like, Nick will probably pull this up and put it in the video because he's way more technologically advanced than I am. But I'm going to have to send this to you, Jacques. It's called the GT1. I think it's called the GT1, right? It was modeled after it is called the GT1. And it was modeled after the old GT1 Le Mans cars back in the early 90s. They're only going to make 22 of these. I'm trying to figure out how to send this to you right now, but it's insane. Like full carbon fiber body. It's got an in-house, built 4-liter flat six, somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 horsepower. Again, their whole thing is keeping it super lightweight. So this thing, it's a little heavier than 911K, but it's still somewhere around 1,200, 1,300 kilograms. And just the attention to detail is bonkers. And so that was one thing that came, that kind of stole the thunder. And then from like the manufacturer standpoint, Lamborghini finally announced the hybrid, right? That's replacing the Huracan. I always say it the way it's supposed to be said, and people make fun of me. Huracan. But the Temerario, whatever it is their new hybrid successor to the Huracan. That thing is insane. I mean, the Maserati GT2 Stradale, it just, everybody seemed to like up their game this year. And on one hand, it's nice to kind of sit back in the comfort of my own home and just look at all this on Instagram or, online or whatever and experience it. But man, it really makes me want to be there. So I think next year, that's the goal, guys, is we got to figure out how to get there and broadcast live somehow. And also just bring sneakers there. Because sneakers is not, that's our way in there. Like, people do dress high end and everything like that, but there's not a big emphasis on sneakers. I think we can rock up in like some really rare or custom stuff and change the game completely.
That could be our angle. That'll be our angle, the different perspective on things in Car Week. I bet that'd be pretty sick. I bet people would be down for that.
Yeah,
totally.
I think they would for sure. Nick, what were some of the highlights you saw? I mean, there's so many to go over. We could do 2 hours worth of talking about them, but
yeah, I mean, I think the supercars and the hypercars and all of that are really incredible. I think just from a like average everyday consumer perspective, the two that stood out to me were an M5 wagon. I love 5 Series wagons.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never had an M. The M is essentially like the higher end version, the performance version of a car from BMW, for those that don't know. And it's always been talked about. It's been available in Europe, for decades, basically. And there's been rumors of us getting a 5 Series M wagon. And now they finally came out and unveiled it at Car Week. I think the other side of that, we posted on Instagram, Acura brought out the Integra HRC, which is their Honda Racing Corporation, which is essentially they're racing. They're trying to connect their racing to like car culture. And I love Honda and Acura with a passion. I still am, a purist in the sense that I would love to see like a 2-door hatchback, like in the newer body style and stuff.
Right.
But they really did like an excellent job putting that car together. It has all the things that the kind of, like the 40-something male like myself that's like, well, I still need to have 4 doors, but I can make a 4-door race car pretty nicely. So that was really cool to see. And I think the thing that stands out to me about what Car Week has become, as I'm saying all of this, is that to Eric's point, everything crescendos each year. We just keep building and building on, and it becomes bigger and bigger. But it's really something you have to be at if you are a brand that wants to do something and interact with people, because it's so attainable. Like I remember like back in the day, kind of, I forget when the newest version of the NSX came out. It's probably like 2015 or something.
17, I think.
Maybe 17. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna go with 17.
the unveil of that car was like in a tiny park in Carmel. And it was so minimal to what it is now. 7 years later, any brand has like, they have these massive podiums. They have these, crazy experiences. People get to get up close and personal with most of these cars. Even the craziest of hypercars, are right there. You can pop your head into them, and some of them you can sit in. And I think, going back to like what we started talking about, Jacques, if you just show up and become a part of it and just enjoy it, I think the funnest thing that I've ever been a part of with Car Week, probably 2018 or so, we were actually over by Pebble Beach, and there's I forget what it is, maybe like a 458 parked outside, kind of like awkwardly parked, and there was a car being like pulled off of a truck, and I was just there watching, and like I was with family, and Cam, my girlfriend's with us, and the owner and his wife of the Ferrari come out, and like we're standing there looking at it, and he's like, "Oh, you want to get in? Yeah, hop in." Like literally, like just like you're not going to get that opportunity elsewhere, right? You're not going to go to the dealership and sit in a car that costs $300,000-$400,000 or more, And I think that's like kind of the cool factor of the kind of craziness that happens, is like it's all so accessible in a lot of ways. Like, there are $800 and up events, there's multiple $1,000 events, and there's super exclusive parties and all of those things that happen. But like, there's so many people that are just like, I'm stoked to have this. So you should be stoked to like be able to experience it too. So have a seat, take your picture, like whatever.
Yeah.
And that happens all over the place. You'll see people stopping and taking pictures with someone in their car, or seeing kids getting in and out of cars. Like, that somebody, you just don't get to see that elsewhere. And that's probably like the coolest thing about it as I'm talking about it. Like the unveils are really cool. Yeah. The grandioseness, if that's a word, that it's become is amazing, but it's very real to me.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of how massive like Comic-Con is now, and how like studios are making like major announcements at Comic-Con instead of having them on their own. It's how like E3 used to be like the big thing for video games, or CES is when electronic companies would do these things. It sounds like Monterey Car Week is that thing. And I would have thought that, that would be like the LA Auto Show or something like that is when they would do those kind of things. But it sounds like Monterey Car Week has almost more of a cultural relevance. Would that be accurate?
Your Comic-Con reference is spot on, because like, for example, our show, Superman and Lois, we did like just an exclusive 9-minute trailer for the upcoming season, only for the people that were at Comic-Con. So like they dropped a regular 2-minute trailer or whatever for the masses out there in the world via social media. But on the same day, our executive producers and Tyler and Bitsy, Superman and Lois, they were there and they hosted a panel in Hall H, and they did like an exclusive 9-minute trailer for our upcoming season just for the people there. So to your point, it went from being, a gathering of a bunch of comic book, nerds, just like car nerds, to full-on studios supporting stuff like our show and getting it out there because of the presence of media, because of the presence of all these passionate fans and everything. And people see value in that. And the cool thing about Monterey Car Week is, kind of what Nick was talking about is, yes, you've got all these opportunities. It's the only place really in the world. There are other events similar, but where you can have these multi-million-dollar cars going through auction lines or going down the lawn at Pebble Beach through Concours d'Elegance. And then you can have, like he said, just random, high-dollar supercars on the street with people letting kids sit in them and stuff. And now it's gotten to the point where even companies like Kia had a presence there, and they unveiled the new EV9 SUV and a limited edition EV6.
I love that.
So it's exactly what Nick was saying, is like, you have to be there now. It's not an option anymore. It's not just this cool event that would be like a fun thing to be a part of. If you're a manufacturer, if you're a third-party manufacturer, an aftermarket company or whatever, if you really want to have some skin in the game, like you've got to be present at something like this. So it's super cool to see how it's evolved.
That's incredible. It's great to see like that, like, because the car culture is so strong and people are so passionate about them. To see that all come together, I kind of wish there was an equivalent to this in the sneaker world, because
Cars and Kicks Con, we got to launch it.
Cars and Kicks Con. There you
go. I mean, I really do think that is what is missing from sneakers. Like, we've been doing this for a really long time, and like, it's something that I'm still very passionate about. But I see a lot of people that kind of come into it for the wrong reasons. And if there's anything that Car Week gets right, is like, it doesn't matter who you are. There's a level of authenticity. And yes, there are some people that just show up to be seen, but that's okay. Like, people do that all the time, and that's why you buy a crazy car. That's why you buy a pair of sneakers that's probably way too much money, like, those types of things are the self-expression that you want to put out there in the world. And I think that's something that we miss that in sneakers in a lot of ways. Like, we don't have the, this is a little old school for people, but like, we don't have the Nike Talk meetups the way we used to, where it was like, 30 or 40 people in the Bay Area just showed up to like talk about shoes together, outside of an In-N-Out burger or something, where, you can do that in cars on a weekly basis pretty easily. Cars and coffee everywhere,
all over the place,
all the time.
Find your niche, and you can find a place to meet up and find your people. Sneakers, I think, with like something like SneakerCon and some of the events that happened, they became so big so quickly that it diminished the value of the people that really care about it. And I think that's what the most beautiful thing about what's happening in the car world right now is there's a transition from, we talked a little bit about this on a previous episode, but there's a transition from a very corporate approach to cars. And now there's a further transition to like, we have to incorporate, we have to include the passionate collectors, the drivers that are behind these cars, one of the Integra videos that came out recently, like, has a bunch of like, of even like the launch video had a bunch of old Integras and people that are like diehard builders in that scene. And I think with sneakers, we don't have that, right? We moved past all of it into kind of an era where it's like, everything is being mass produced and we're flipping everything and selling everything and blah, blah, blah. But like, the brands themselves have also moved past the people that really had the energy behind a lot of the stuff that happens. And my hope is that like this circles back, and we're starting to see it, right? We're seeing people, like Jay Tips is a good example of like somebody who's just been a diehard sneakerhead for a really long time, and like getting collaborations with Saucony and Salehi, doing his collabs. There's people that are like really passionate about it, but the people that unfortunately in sneakers in like the, kind of early to mid 2000s, we got a lot of people that were elevated that were only really about the look at me attitude versus like the people that are like, oh, look at what I'm doing, come do it with me. And that's the part that I love about Car Week that I really hope sneakers gets back to, because it's I think like most people that are going to listen to this that are into sneakers know exactly what I'm talking about. You might have your handful of friends that you talk kicks with, but outside of that kind of group, you don't get that like shared passion to the depths that we've talked about in this episode.
Yeah, and this show for cars. It's almost like Monterey Car Week is cultural, and like sneaker events that are at scale are transactional. And I think that's probably the major difference, which makes me a sad boy.
I think it's inevitable, though. I think it's just a matter of time before we start seeing some of this, come. Maybe, hopefully, we're playing a big part in this. But you're starting to see maybe not sneaker specific, but streetwear brands collaborating with automotive manufacturers and stuff. Roof and High Snob Society did a collab here that launched during Monterey Car Week. You've got even more mainstream stuff. You've got stuff at like Hollister and McLaren F1 team or something like that, So you're starting to see some of that kind of integrate. And I think it's just a matter of time before it really starts to hold, take hold in the sneaker world. It's just, it's too cool of a deal to not happen. So maybe we're the people that usher that in. That's how I want to look at it.
Get it back to that. Get it back to that. I love it.
Yeah. But, no, man, I think, again, we could talk for hours on this topic, on Monterey Car Week, et cetera. It's one of those things that, you just have to get out there and experience, and hopefully we'll get to do that maybe next year. There's some other really cool car events coming up soon that, we'll be talking about and touching base on and everything. But, I think it's even if we couldn't be there, it's nice to be able to be able to live in a time where technology allows us to experience this, even if it's only in digital form. And it's cool to be a part of it, with our own podcast and be able to kind of fill some of the folks that aren't necessarily in this world in on what's going on, and hopefully bring some people into our new little crew, Yeah,
that'd be dope. Well, thank you to everybody for watching. This was really cool. So now I can't wait to Monterey Car Week, and we might have something special happening here in LA, which we won't talk about exactly, but
just in case it never happens.
Just in case it doesn't happen, but I think there's going to be something really cool happening here in LA that we can't wait to share with you guys, and I think you guys are going to be really excited about, and give you a different perspective on one, where we want to take this show and how deep these worlds of cars and sneakers can really, really go, because it's a really exciting world. So thank you for coming along for the ride. I am Jacques Slade. I'm here with Erik and Nick. Erik, give them your socials, and you pass it to Nick, and then Nick, you just close us out.
Playing basketball here. I'm Erik Valdez. It is just at Erik Valdez, ERIK VALDEZ on all platforms. Nick, I forgot to pass it to you.
Yeah.
I had one job. I'm
Erik, guys.
I'm Nick Engvall. Nick Engvall on all the platforms. You can follow my sneaker stuff at Sneaker History. But hey, leave us a comment. Give us some positive vibes. Manifest this LA opportunity. Yes. And maybe we'll fill you in the next couple episodes once we get a confirmation that we're making this happen. Thanks for watching.
We appreciate y'all.
All right. Peace.